The wind screamed across the frozen plains, sharp like knives. Ilaria held her baby close, her arms wrapped tight around the tiny bundle of warmth. She had no gloves left, no boots, no food only. The soft sound of her child breathing, snow clung to her silver hair, and her skin had turned blue from the cold. But still she walked. Her world, once full of light and green skies, was gone. War had burned everything, and the ones who promised peace had vanished. The humans, the ones her people once feared and fought, had disappeared too. No one answered distress calls. No one came. The baby whimpered. Ilaria stopped and crouched beside a dead tree covered in frost. She placed her child inside the folds of her cloak, pulled tight against her chest. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the cold that never stopped. It bit into her bones, into her heart. She looked up at the sky, gray and endless. The twin suns had died behind clouds 2 days ago. She hadn't eaten in 3 days. Her body screamed for rest. But mothers didn't rest not when their babies still breathed. She tried to whisper a song, an old lullaby her own mother once sang. But her lips were cracked, her throat dry. The wind swallowed the words. Her voice broke into silence. She sat down, back against the tree. "I'm sorry," she whispered to her child. "I couldn't find help. I tried." The baby made a soft sound like a sigh. Ilaria smiled weakly. Tears freezing on her cheeks, she wrapped the cloak tighter around them both and closed her eyes. It would be peaceful, she told herself. It would feel like sleep. Darkness came slowly. The cold became quiet, like a blanket. She felt her heart slowing. She let go. Then something strange happened. A crunch. Footsteps on ice, steady and heavy. Not a beast, not wind, someone. Her eyes fluttered open, too weak to move. A tall shadow stood over her. She expected to die. But instead, she felt heat. Real heat, not imagined. Fire, hands, rough but careful, lifted the child first. Then her, a coat, thick and heavy, was thrown over them both. She felt her body being dragged not across snow, but into something warm. A small shelter? A cave? She couldn't tell. Crackling the smell of burning wood, she opened her eyes again and saw fire, dancing and alive. And beside it, a man, a human. His face was rough, unshaved, with a long scar across one cheek. But his eyes were calm, focused. He was feeding the fire with shaking hands, but he never looked away from her like he expected her to vanish. Ilaria tried to speak but coughed instead. He moved closer and held a small cup to her lips, warm broth. Touched her tongue, tasted like nothing, but it filled her belly with life. Her child made a sound alive, crying, hungry. The man smiled. "Still got fight in her," he said softly. His voice was deep, a little broken. She stared at him, confused. Why would a human help her? "Why?" she whispered. "Why help me?" He looked at her for a long moment, then said just 3 words, "Because no one did." Ilaria felt her chest ache. She remembered the faces of her people, cold, proud, full of hate for humans. She had once called them monsters, killers. But this man, he was the first warmth she had felt in weeks. "Who are you?" She asked. "Name's Caleb," he said simply. "I was a soldier." His eyes looked away then, toward the fire, and I was tired of watching people die. She looked down at her baby, now wrapped in both their cloaks, sleeping safe. Ilaria didn't know if she could trust this man, but the fire was real, the heat was real, and her child was alive that night, while snow covered the world outside. 3 souls shared a flame, a mother who gave up, a man who had nothing left, and a child who refused to stop breathing. None of them knew it yet, but this was not the end. It was the beginning of something bigger, much, much bigger. Asterisk, when Ilaria woke again, she was under thick fabric, soft and heavy. A faint orange light flickered nearby. Her arms reached out quickly for her child, still breathing, still warm, still there. Relief hit her like thunder. But her body was still too weak to cry. Instead, she looked around. The place was smaller, Dugout cabin, half buried in snow. Wooden walls reinforced with metal scraps, a low ceiling, and a fire pit in the center, and there, sitting cross-legged by the fire, was the human man. He wasn't asleep. He was watching her, not with anger, not with fear, but with caution, as if expecting her to attack. "You're awake," he said, voice low but steady. "I thought you might not make it." Ilaria sat up slowly, her joints aching like stone. Her child squirmed beside her, hungry. The man noticed and passed her a warm cloth soaked in some kind of nutrient broth. It wasn't milk, but it would keep the baby alive for now. She took it silently. "Where are we?" she asked. "Northridge, of what used to be Delta Province," he replied. "About 15 miles from the crater." The crater, she remembered, bombs, fire from the sky, cities turned to ash. Her people had called it necessary, the humans called it revenge. Either way, millions died. "You live here?" she asked slowly. The man gave a short laugh, dry and bitter. "Live is a strong word. Survive, maybe." He stood up then, tall and strong despite the cold. His coat was patched in places, the kind soldiers wore before the war ended. He walked to a small shelf and pulled out a piece of bread, handed it to her. "Eat," he said. "You'll need your strength." She hesitated, then took it. Her pride had frozen long before her hands did. "I'm Ilaria," she said, "from the Syrian colony." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Syrians," he repeated. "Didn't think any of you were left." "Most aren't," she answered quietly. "You could have left me." "Could have," he said, sitting again by the fire. "But I didn't." She stared at him, this man with scars on his face and sadness in his voice. "You were a soldier?" she asked. "Yeah," he said. "Earth. Command Recon Division." He poked at the fire with a metal rod. "Fought your kind for 5 years, and now you help me?" she whispered, confused after everything. He didn't look at her. He just stared into the flames. "I lost my wife and daughter in the second wave," he said. "Alien fighters bombed the refugee train. I buried them both under snow, just like you almost were." Silence fell between them. The baby made a soft coo. Both adults looked down for a moment. There was no war, no history, no anger, just the sound of life. The kind of sound Caleb hadn't heard in years. "I thought I'd lost everything," he said, his voice lower now. "But then I saw you in the snow, holding that child like it. Was the last thing in the universe reminded me of her." "Your daughter?" Ilaria asked. "Yeah," he nodded. "She had your eyes." Ilaria looked away, her throat tight. She didn't know this man. Yet something about him, his pain, his quiet felt familiar, like they were two survivors from different planets, but the same war. Suddenly, a sound outside, a soft crunch of snow, slow and careful. Caleb's eyes snapped toward the entrance. He reached behind him and grabbed a weapon old. Scarred but still charged, he held up a finger to Ilaria. "Stay. Quiet. Stay low." She pulled her baby close again, heart racing. Had someone followed them? A scavenger? A beast? Caleb moved toward the entrance silently, listening. "Ah!" Then he opened the hatch and disappeared into the cold. Minutes passed, slow as years. Ilaria waited. "Ah!" Hand over her baby's head, then footsteps returning, fast and firm. Caleb dropped back. Inside, closed the hatch, and locked it. "False alarm," he said, breathing hard. "Just a snow fox." "But that means the larger predators are moving too. We'll need to reinforce the shelter." He sat again by the fire. But his hands still held the weapon, always ready, always watching. "You didn't have to save me," Ilaria said suddenly, her voice softer now. "Not out of weakness, but—" "Understanding, I know," Caleb replied, eyes on the baby, "but maybe I needed to." The fire cracked softly in the corner outside. The wind howled through the trees like ghosts calling for home, but inside the shelter. Silence ruled, not peaceful silence, but one born from doubt, from memories, from war. Ilaria sat near the fire. Cradling her child in both arms, the baby slept soundly, a rare moment of calm. But her eyes didn't leave the man across from her. Caleb, her unexpected savior, a human. She had been raised to fear humans. Her teachers called them brutal. Her generals called them monsters. Her people had sent soldiers to Earth thinking it was just another conquest, but Earth had fought back, and humans didn't forget. "Why did you really help me?" she asked again, voice low. Caleb didn't answer right away. He was sharpening a blade. Running it slowly over a stone, metal hissed like a whisper through the shelter. He looked up, then leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. "I told you," he said. "You reminded me of someone." Ilaria frowned. "That's not enough." "No," Caleb agreed. "But I guess I was tired of watching good people die." "Good," she repeated, voice colder now. "You don't even know me." "I know what I saw," Caleb said, eyes steady, a mother willing to freeze to death for her child. Ilaria didn't respond. Her hand moved over her baby's head slowly, protectively. But something in her chest, something tight and broken, twitched. Was it trust or just weakness? The silence returned. Then Caleb reached into his bag and pulled out a thin data pad. He placed it between them, its screen flickering with static before clearing. Photos, humans, smiling, laughing, hugging. One woman with kind eyes and a small girl with curls, no older than 2. "My family," Caleb said softly. "They were waiting for me at the edge station. I was on patrol when the attack happened." Ilaria stared at the image, her throat clenched. Her kind had sent the warship. That destroyed that station. She had helped translate the commands. She had believed it was necessary. "You should hate me," she whispered. "Maybe," Caleb said, not denying it. But hate didn't save them. Kindness might save someone else. His words struck her hard, not like a weapon, but like a question. Who was she now? A soldier? A mother? A survivor? "I did terrible things," she said, almost ashamed. Caleb looked at her and nodded. "So did I." The fire crackled between them, throwing light on faces too old for their years. She looked at him differently. Now not just as a man, but as something more. A reflection. He wasn't warm, not really, but he chose to be. Suddenly a sound, soft at first. But rising, the baby woke and cried out loud. Sharp and sudden like a flare in the dark, Ilaria moved fast to calm her child, but her arms were still weak. Her hands trembling, the child's tiny fists pushed against her chest, hungry and restless. Her heart twisted, knowing she had nothing more to offer. Then Caleb was there, without a word. He handed her a small pouch worm, filled with broth and nutrients. She took it, stunned. "How do you?" She began. "I lost count of how many I helped in the camps," he said, sitting back. "Mothers, kids, wounded. Didn't matter what species they were just people." She fed her baby in silence, eyes glassy. For the first time, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Safe. The child quieted, eyelids drooping, body warm again, and in that moment, the child's small hand reached up and caught Caleb's finger. He froze. Ilaria stared, holding her breath. The baby smiled, a soft, peaceful smile that lit up the whole room. And then it happened. "Da," the baby mumbled. Half asleep, one tiny word, but it shattered the silence like thunder. Ilaria blinked fast, heart pounding. Caleb looked stunned, unsure whether to smile or cry. "She doesn't know what that means." Ilaria said quickly, a shaky laugh in her throat. "She's just mimicking sounds, maybe," Caleb replied, still staring at the child. "But maybe she knows more than we do." Ilaria didn't know what to say. There was no training in her past for this. There's no war manual that could explain this warmth in her chest. She looked at Caleb again, this strange human. He hadn't just saved her body. He was changing something inside her, but she didn't fully trust him yet. Old pain ran deep, and not all warmth melted frozen hearts. Not right away, but maybe. It could start. Tonight. By this fire, it had begun. The snow outside had stopped falling, but silence covered the land like a thick, heavy blanket inside the shelter. The fire had burned low, its light now soft and flickering. Caleb added more wood, the embers glowing red, but something in the air felt wrong. Ilaria had noticed it first. A feeling, not a sound, not a movement, but a chill that didn't come from the cold. She sat near the door, her child asleep on her lap. Wrapped in both her and Caleb's cloaks, Her eyes stared toward the hatch. Unblinking, something's out there, she said quietly. Caleb didn't argue. He had felt it too. I saw tracks. This morning, he replied, his voice low. Not mine, not yours. Too large to be a snow fox, too light to be a human. Ilaria's hand gently rubbed her child's back. A mother's instinct screamed inside her. It wasn't just a wild animal. It was watching, waiting. Could it be scavengers? She asked. Maybe, Caleb answered, or something worse. He stood and walked to a metal locker. Pulling out an older model laser rifle, it had dents, scratches, and a custom grip that had seen many battles. He checked the charged cell, still working. Ilaria's breath fogged in front of her. She could barely believe it was only 2 days ago she had collapsed in the snow. Now she was alive. Her child was alive, and the man she feared had become her shield. But the world outside still hunted them. They ate quickly dried protein strips. Reheated broth. Caleb placed a sensor spike outside the hatch. It blinked green, then yellow. He frowned. That sensor reads heat signatures, he said. It just picked something up, but it disappeared too fast for a snow beast. Ilaria asked. He nodded slowly. Whatever's out there, it's not just walking. It's watching, and it knows how to stay hidden. The baby stirred in her sleep. Whining softly, Ilaria rocked her gently, her eyes never leaving the door. A memory came to her old stories from her colony about creatures that roamed abandoned war zones. Not aliens, not humans, something else. Hunters of the forgotten. Caleb, she said, what if it's not a scavenger? What if it's a leftover? He looked at her, confused. A leftover? He repeated. She nodded. During the war, both sides used prototype weapons. Some were alive. Part machine, part organic, designed to hunt and survive in extreme places. They were supposed to die when the fighting stopped, but some didn't. Caleb's face went pale. I heard stories like that. Too, he said. Soldiers vanishing, patrols never returning. They both turned toward the hatch. Then scratch, a long, slow scrape against metal. Ilaria stood, now holding. Her child closed against her chest. The sound came again, this time closer to the lock. Get down, Caleb said, already moving to the corner of the shelter. He motioned her to crouch behind a crate. Hidden from view, he knelt near the fire and aimed the rifle at the entrance. Then came a whisper. Not words, not language, just a strange clicking sound. Like bones tapping glass, the door handle began to shift. Not forcefully, but slowly, carefully, like something learning how it worked. Ilaria's heart beat so hard she thought it would wake the child. The fire snapped loudly, and for 1 second, the shelter was lit fully, and a shadow moved past. The window, tall, thin, with too many limbs. Caleb fired once. Boom. The light from the blast lit the room blue. The door held, but the shape vanished from sight. They sat in silence, breath frozen in their lungs. Then nothing, just whined again. Did I hit it? Caleb asked, unsure. Illyria shook her head. I don't think it was trying to come in. She said it was testing us. Caleb closed the hatch tighter, added another locking bar. Testing. He asked. Yes, she whispered, because it's not hungry, it's curious. That night, they took turns staying awake. The baby didn't stir again, maybe sensing her mother's fear, every sound outside, every creak. Gust or echo made their muscles tense, but the creature never returned. Not that night. At dawn, Caleb stepped outside to check the surroundings. The tracks were there again, but this time, closer, circling the shelter. They weren't footprints, not like human or animal. They were like claws dragging through snowbutt, never sinking too deep. Too light, too precise. He picked up one of the strange prints and touched it, still warm. Whatever it was, it had been. There less than an hour ago, Ilaria stood at the doorway, watching him from behind. She said nothing. But he could see it in her eyes. The war hadn't truly ended. Not in places like this. Something was still hunting, and it had found them. The sun rose slowly behind heavy clouds, casting no warmth, only light. Caleb stood in the snow, studying the strange tracks again, long, narrow claws, evenly spaced, circling the shelter in perfect loops. Whatever was out there, it wasn't just walking, it was planning. Inside, Illyria rocked her child gently. Her eyes never leaving the door, she could feel it now. Not just fear, but anger. She had lost too much already. She refused to lose her daughter now. When Caleb returned, his face was hard, his jaw tight. He placed a bundle of wires and parts on the table. "We need to set traps," he said, "tonight." "It might come back," Illyria nodded, no hesitation this time. "Tell me what to do." He blinked at her, surprised. "You sure?" "Yes," she said firmly. "I won't hide while something hunts us." Not again. Caleb didn't smile, but his eyes softened just slightly. He handed her a small motion sensor and showed her how to arm it. Then he gave her an old plasma knife, the blade dull, but still sharp enough to cut ice. "Stick to defense," he told her. "Don't run unless I say." They worked in silence for hours, stringing tripwires, burying spikes under snow, rigging sensors to alert them if anything moved. Caleb climbed a nearby tree and mounted a lookout device, its lens still functional after all these years. Illyria checked each sensor twice, her fingers steady, her focus sharp. That night, the wind picked up again. The world outside was a blur of snow and shadows. Inside, they sat beside the fire, the baby asleep between them. But neither adult closed their eyes. "Do you ever miss it?" Illyria asked quietly. "Miss what?" Caleb replied, not taking his eyes off the door. "The world." Before, he was quiet for a moment, then he said, "I miss my daughter's laugh. That's what I remember most." Illyria looked at him, the flames dancing in his eyes. "I used to think humans had no heart," she admitted. "I'm not sure I ever had one until now." Caleb finally looked at her. "You're not the same woman who fell in the snow." He said, "You've already changed." She didn't know what to say to that, but a part of her, deep inside, believed him. Then boop, a sensor lit up red. They both stood instantly, weapons ready. The alert showed movement. Something just entered the outer trap zone 100 meters away. "Here we go," Caleb muttered. Illyria held her knife tightly, her heart beat fast but focused. The fire burned low, their shadows stretching long on the walls. Then came the first sound: click, scratch, drag, just like before. But this time it wasn't circling, it was approaching. The motion sensor beeped faster. 50 meters, 30, 10, then snap, a loud crack as the first trap was triggered. Something screamed, not animal, not machine, something between. Then silence again. Caleb moved to the peephole and looked outside. "I hit it," he whispered. "One leg maybe, but it's still moving." A shadow lunged past the window, fast, too fast for its size. Then another trap exploded. Boom. Flames lit the snow outside, and they both saw it clearly for the first time. It stood taller than any man, thin like bone. With metal plates fused into its back, its face was hidden behind a mask of glass and steel. 4 arms, long and twitching, one leg bleeding a strange black steam. It screamed again and slammed into the shelter door. Bang. Bang. The locks held, but barely. Caleb fired through the window zap. One shot hit the thing's chest, knocking it backward. It screeched and fled, disappearing into the trees. Silence returned, broken only by the baby's soft whimper. Illyria held her close, rocking her with one arm, knife still in the other. "We need to leave," Caleb said, breathing hard. "It knows this place now, but where?" Illyria asked, her voice shaking. He opened a panel on the floor and pulled out something wrapped in cloth, a beacon, old, cracked but still pulsing faint light. "I didn't use it before," he said, "because I didn't trust who might answer. But now? We don't have a choice." Illyria stared at it. "That could bring more danger or rescue," he said. "It's a risk either way." She looked at her child, then at the fire, then finally at him. "I trust you," she said. The words heavier than any she had spoken before. "Whatever happens, we do it together." Caleb met her eyes. Something unreadable in his expression. Then he nodded. He activated the beacon, sending out a signal through the sky, a call across the stars, a chance outside. The snow fell quietly again. But something still watched from the dark, and something else, far above the clouds, heard the signal. Asterisk, the beacon pulsed with soft blue light. It blinked once every few seconds, sending a coded message into the sky. Illyria sat close, watching it like it might explode. Caleb checked the signal strength low, but steady. He had rewired the antenna. Using old satellite scraps and a fusion cell, it was working barely. How long until someone hears it? She asked. He shrugged. Could be hours, he said. Could be days. Depends on who's still out there. Ilaria stared out the narrow window. Snowstorm had passed, but the wind still carried something heavy. Not just cold warning. You really think someone will come? She asked again. Caleb didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at the fire. At the quiet baby in Ilaria's arms, then he said, I have to believe that. They took shifts resting, guarding, checking sensors. But the creature never came back that night. Its tracks ended in melted snow and scorched dirt. Still, neither of them let their guard drop. At dawn, a change came. The beacon lit up green this time. It had connected. Someone was listening. Caleb stared at it, then tapped a button. A voice came through, broken but clear. This is the Haven Ark ship, receiving distress ping. Identify human or non-human. Ilaria and Caleb looked at each other. He pressed the come button. This is Caleb Cross, he said. Human. Ex-military. I'm not alone. Static. Then the voice again, colder now. You're with an alien. Caleb's hand tightened around the come. Yes, he said. She has a child. They're not a threat. There was a long pause. Ilaria's breath caught. She knew what this meant, what it could mean. Humans didn't forget the war. Some still hated her kind, even now. Then the voice returned. We have a peace charter aboard. Asterisk approach coordinates will be transmitted. You'll be scanned before entry. Caleb looked at Ilaria. She nodded slowly. It was their best chance. They gathered supplies quickly, loaded the child into a sling on Ilaria's chest, packed what food they had left, weapons, sensors, and the remaining fuel rods. Then they started walking away from the shelter, into the unknown. They followed the signal east through snowy hills and burnt forests. Caleb checked the tracker every half hour. Ilaria walked close behind, always listening, always alert. They didn't speak much. Their eyes said everything stay alive, stay together, by nightfall. They reached a wide plain. Ash covered the ground. Like black snow, trees stood like broken bones, burned down to stumps. Ilaria looked around and whispered, This was once a city. Caleb nodded. One of the last before the truce, hit by orbital fire from both sides, they walked. Through it, no signs of life, just melted metal, shattered stone. And bones, some alien, some human. The past lay in every shadow, but ahead? Something flickered in the skylights, moving, slow and large. Ilaria gasped. Above them, almost hidden behind clouds, floated the Haven Ark ship, a massive oval craft. Pulsing with energy fields and protective shields, it looked like a floating city. It was beautiful and terrifying. Suddenly, the tracker beeped a soft warning tone. Something was behind them. Caleb turned fast, rifle raised. From the shadows of broken buildings came the click-click sound again, then a growl, low and metallic. The creature had returned, only this time. Wasn't alone. 3 more emerged from the ruins, taller than before. Glowing red eyes under their broken masks, they followed the signal, Ilaria realized. They must feed on energy. Caleb fired. Zap, zap. 2 went down, but the others scattered too fast to target. He grabbed Ilaria's hand and pulled her into a broken tunnel. We have to reach the beacon pickup point, he shouted. We're less than a mile away. Ilaria ran, her child tucked against her chest. The creatures shrieked behind them. Closing in, but they didn't stop. They couldn't. They burst. From the tunnel into an open field cleared wide and lit from above. A beam of light shot down a landing beacon. A transport ship was descending fast. Run! Caleb shouted. The creatures lunged from the ruins. One caught Ilaria's arm. She slashed with her knife, black smoke bursting out. Caleb tackled another and fired point-blank boom. Then the ship doors opened. Soldiers in advanced armor rushed. Out, human and alien, side by side. They opened fire, zap, zap, zap. The creatures screeched, retreated, then vanished into the shadows. 2 soldiers grabbed Ilaria and Caleb, pulling them aboard. The baby cried, but was safe. The doors closed. the ship lifted off, and the battlefield below became silent again. Inside the ship, medics scanned them. One human officer approached. Removing his helmet, he looked at them both. "You survived in that?" he asked. "Together?" Caleb glanced at Ilaria, then nodded. "Together," he said. "That's the only reason we're still alive." The transport ship flew high above the ash fields. Its engines hummed quietly, a deep, calming sound that felt unreal after so much silence. Ilaria sat near the window, her child wrapped safely in a clean blanket. She had just been bathed, checked, and fed by the medics for the first time in weeks. The baby slept peacefully, her face soft and calm. Across from her, Caleb leaned back in his seat, still holding on to his rifle, even now, in safety. He watched every corner, every shadow. Old habits die slow, but his eyes often drifted toward the baby, and sometimes, to Ilaria, a soft voice came from the ship's intercom. "We are approaching the Haven Ark ship. Prepare for docking and final scans." Ilaria looked at Caleb, unsure. "What do you think they'll do with us?" she asked. Caleb didn't. "Lie, I don't know," he said. "The ship is run by a peace coalition. But peace always has rules." As they docked, a group of officers waited at the airlock. Humans, Syrians, and other species from the old war now, wearing the same uniform, their leader. A woman with a calm face and silver rank pins stepped forward. "I'm Commander Naira," she said. Looking from Ilaria to Caleb, "You've both been flagged. As survivors under mixed status, we don't get many of those." Caleb nodded. "We didn't plan it. It just happened." The commander motioned them into a private room. Two guards followed silently, more for protocol than threat, inside. Naira sat across from them and pulled up a file on her tablet. "Your scan records show combat history, survival, in radiation zones, and recent contact with a Class B predator." "You mean the creature that was hunting us?" Caleb said. "Yes," Naira replied. "We've been tracking them. They were leftovers from old bioweapons labs, hunting energy. Sources, your beacon must have drawn them out." Ilaria shifted nervously. "What happens now?" she asked. "To me? To my child?" Naira leaned forward, her voice firm but not cruel. "This ship offers safety," she said. "But we follow laws. Humans and aliens must declare intent when arriving together. You'll be placed in different holding sectors while we run." "Evaluations?" "No," Ilaria said quickly, clutching her child. "I'm not leaving her." "You won't be," Naira said gently. "But the human will need to go through separate clearance." Ilaria turned to Caleb, and something twisted. Inside her, she had come to trust him, to rely on him, and now they wanted to split them again. Again, after all they survived. Caleb didn't argue. "I'll go where they tell me," he said, standing up. "But make sure they're taken care of." The baby stirred in her sleep, as if hearing his voice. Then her hand reached out in the air blindly. "Da," she mumbled again. Naira blinked, surprised at her first word. Ilaria nodded, her throat tight. "Yes," she said softly, and she meant it. Caleb turned. Halfway to the door, he stopped, looked back at them, and Ilaria stood up, heart pounding. "No," she said, "he stays, if you want peace. To mean something, if you want this ship to be different than the broken world outside, then don't split us apart. He's not just a soldier, not just a human. He's our family now." Naira watched her carefully, then she stood, hands behind her back, and nodded once. "I'll file for unity clearance," she said. "Temporary quarters will be provided together. But you'll both be monitored." Ilaria didn't care. She just let out a deep breath and nodded. "Thank you," that night. They were given a small room in one of the lower decks, a simple bed, a fresh meal, and clean clothes. The baby slept in a cradle beside them. The lights dimmed slowly, the walls humming softly like a heartbeat. Ilaria sat on the edge of the bed, watching the stars through the round window. Caleb stood beside her, arms crossed, quiet as always. "We made it," she whispered. He nodded. "Yeah." She turned to him slowly, "You know. We don't have a name for her yet." Caleb looked surprised. "I thought you did." Ilaria shook her head. "I was waiting to feel something real again. To give her a name born in hope, not war. Caleb was quiet, then said, "How about Solara?" Ilaria blinked. "Why that?" He smiled slightly. "It means from the sun, something warm, something new." Ilaria looked at the sleeping baby, her tiny chest rising and falling with perfect peace. Then she whispered Solara and nodded. "It's perfect, Caleb." Sat beside her, closer than before. They didn't touch, didn't speak again. But the silence between them was no longer made of fear. It was made of something stronger choice. They had lost everything in the cold, but they had chosen warmth. And now, they had found something more than survival. They had found a future.